I know I'm innocent, Jerry knows he's innocent, we know each other are innocent. And that, to me, it was actually quite calming, because I thought, we're innocent, we're totally innocent.
It was supposed to be an ordinary evening on the sun-kissed coast of Portugal. Families laughed in restaurants, waves whispered against the shore, and children slept soundly in their holiday apartments. But inside one of those apartments, something happened that would echo across the world for more than a decade. A 3-year-old girl named Madeleine McCann vanished into the night. The disappearance itself was shocking enough. Yet, what made this case one of the most haunting mysteries of our time was not only the absence of the child, but the unsettling behavior of her mother, Kate McCann. In September 2007, Portuguese police sat her down for questioning. They asked 49 simple questions. Some were as basic as, did you search inside the wardrobe? Who called the police? What was your daughter's relationship like with her siblings? Any parent could answer them in seconds, even through tears. Kate, however, answered just one. To 48 others, she chose silence. Silence can be protective. Silence can be grief. But in a case like this, silence can also be a statement louder than words. Was Kate following strict legal advice? Or was she holding back something darker, something she dared not say? 16 years later, those unanswered questions have grown heavier, not lighter. They have fueled theories of accidents, cover-ups, even conspiracies reaching into politics and media. The night of May 3, 2007, was not just the night a little girl went missing. It was the night a mystery was born, a mystery where the most piercing clue may not be what was said, but what was left unsaid. The McCann family was spending their holiday at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal. The complex was designed for comfort, bright white buildings, narrow walkways, and a nearby restaurant where guests could enjoy an evening meal while their children slept just steps away. For Kate and Jerry McCann, it felt safe, too safe. That evening, they joined friends at the Tapas Bar, a small restaurant within the resort. They left 3 children asleep in apartment 5A, Madeleine and her younger twin siblings. The plan was simple. They would check on the kids every half hour, but as investigators would later note, the plan contained cracks wide enough to swallow an entire truth. The first crack appeared in something seemingly ordinary: the front door. Jerry claimed he locked it before heading to dinner. Kate said they left it unlocked so they could slip in easily during checks. 2 parents, 2 different accounts of the same door. A locked door meant forced entry would have been needed. An unlocked door meant leaving 3 toddlers exposed to danger. Which was it? Neither version fit comfortably with the image of attentive parents. Around 10 p.m., Kate walked back to the apartment. When she entered, Madeleine's bed was empty. But her reaction was not what anyone expected. She did not shout her daughter's name, did not tear through the apartment searching cupboards and closets. She did not even pick up the phone to call for help. Instead, she ran back to the tapas bar and burst into the dining area, crying out, "They've taken her." Not, "She's missing." Not, "I can't find her." But a definitive declaration of abduction. The tapas restaurant was visible from the apartment balcony. If Kate had shouted from there, her friends might have heard instantly. But she didn't shout. She ran. And her words weren't those of a desperate mother still hoping her daughter was hiding under a bed or behind a curtain. They were words that sounded rehearsed, as if an entire conclusion had been reached in an instant. For investigators, this was the first red flag. How could Kate know, without searching, that Madeleine had been taken? Why was her first instinct to announce a crime, not to find her child? That night, what should have been an evening of routine checks became one of the most scrutinized timelines in modern history. A locked or unlocked door, a missing child, and a mother's strange choice of words. Details that would spiral into years of suspicion, doubt, and theories that never truly ended. When a child vanishes, instinct takes over. Parents scream, they search, they tear through every corner of the room. But on the night Madeleine McCann disappeared, Kate's actions left investigators and witnesses baffled. According to reports, while Jerry and friends rushed around the resort, knocking on doors, peering under cars, and combing the beach, Kate sat motionless on her daughter's bed. Others searched the gardens and alleys. She remained inside. Some witnesses described her as frozen by shock, while others saw something far more chilling: the composure of someone who already knew there was nothing to find. This passivity was not the only troubling detail. When police interviewed Kate, they expected clarity. Instead, they met silence. Out of 49 questions, she declined to answer 48. These were not accusations. They were simple, factual inquiries designed to reconstruct events. Did you search the wardrobe? Silence. Who called the police? Silence. Did any neighbor offer you help? Silence. There were even deeply personal but harmless questions. What was Madeleine's behavior like? How was her relationship with her siblings? Questions any grieving parent could answer through tears. Yet Kate said nothing. One neighbor later testified that she had offered Jerry her phone that night, hearing Kate wailing like an animal. Still, Kate refused to acknowledge this in questioning. Why deny the involvement of someone who simply tried to help? Then came the most haunting question of all. When you entered the apartment and saw your daughter missing, what did you do? What did you touch? A question that could have provided crucial forensic leads, fingerprints, fibers, traces of DNA. But Kate remained silent, erasing the possibility of confirming or disproving vital evidence. Her silence built not just a wall, but a narrative where the most basic facts of the night, the door, the phone calls, the searches, remained hidden in shadow. Defenders argue that she was following legal advice, protecting herself from becoming the prime suspect. Others believe trauma locked her voice, but investigators saw something else. A mother, unwilling or unable to provide the most essential details in the search for her own child. Silence in this case was not passive, it was deliberate. And when viewed alongside her behavior, running instead of shouting, sitting still instead of searching, it painted a portrait that grew darker with every unanswered question. Individually, each moment could be explained by panic, stress, or shock. But together, they formed a pattern, omissions, contradictions, and choices that made investigators wonder whether Kate McCann's silence was not just grief, but the most revealing clue of all. If silence defined Kate McCann's police interview, it was her phone that revealed an even deeper mystery. In cases like this, digital traces, calls, texts, timestamps often provide the clearest map of truth, but when investigators examined Kate's mobile phone, they discovered that parts of the map had been erased. On the night of May 3, 2007, Jerry McCann placed 4 calls to Kate between 11:14 and 11:17 p.m., roughly an hour after she first raised the alarm. 3 of those calls were deleted from Kate's device. Only one remained. Why delete 3 calls made within a 3-minute window, all from her husband, in the very hour their daughter disappeared? The deletions weren't random, they were selective. And this wasn't the only anomaly. The day before Madeleine vanished, Kate had received a call from an unidentified number in Swansea, Wales. She later brushed it off as a wrong number. Yet, curiously, that call was one of the few she did not delete. Stranger still, on the same day, a mobile phone registered in Praia da Luz dialed that exact Swansea number. A triangle was formed: Kate's phone, a number in Swansea, and an unidentified line in Praia da Luz. Who was on the other end of those calls? Why keep the Swansea record but delete the calls from her own husband? To Portuguese investigators, this pattern suggested more than grief or absent-mindedness. It suggested information management. Had Kate simply wanted privacy, she could have deleted the entire log. Instead, she removed only the calls most relevant to the crucial hour of Madeleine's disappearance. The official case files later confirmed these details. 3 of Jerry's calls were erased from Kate's phone. The statement came not from tabloids, but from the investigative dossier itself. What those conversations contained, no one knows. They might have been frantic exchanges, desperate attempts to coordinate the search, or they might have been something more. Discussions about what to say, what not to say, what story to hold on to. Deleting a call doesn't prove guilt, but in the context of a missing child, it raises the question that lingers like smoke. If there was nothing to hide, why erase anything at all? Her words may have been silent in the interview room, but in the digital realm, the silence was even louder. Erased calls, unexplained links, and a pattern of selectivity that only deepened the suspicion surrounding Kate McCann. Words matter. Not only what is said, but how it is said, and what is avoided. Years after Madeleine vanished, statement analyst Peter Hyatt studied the McCann's interviews. His job was not to speculate wildly, but to dissect language, pronouns, verbs, omissions, the subtle choices people make when speaking about trauma. What Hyatt found disturbed him. First, there was the constant use of we instead of I. In contexts where individual responsibility was clear, checking on the children, entering the apartment, Kate and Jerry diluted ownership. Instead of saying, "I checked on Madeline," the phrasing became, "We were checking the children." A subtle shift, but one that blurred accountability. Then came the avoidance of the most basic truth. Hyatt noted that Kate rarely, if ever, said directly, "Madeline is missing." Instead, she relied on phrases like, "since that night," or "when everything happened." The reluctance to name the tragedy, Hyatt argued, suggested denial, or something far more calculated. He also pointed to the composure in their tone. Their speech was steady, almost rehearsed. Most parents of missing children break down, stumble over words, or choke on emotion. Kate and Jerry remained measured, too measured. To Hyatt, these patterns hinted at two possibilities. Either the McCanns were in profound psychological denial, or they were hiding something. He suggested a hypothesis, never proven, but chilling. Madeline may have died in the apartment, perhaps from an accident or even over sedation. Both parents were doctors, Kate with pediatric experience. If Madeline had been given medication to help her sleep and something went wrong, the temptation to cover it up might have been overwhelming. Hyatt didn't stop there. He raised another darker possibility. Abuse, not necessarily by Kate or Jerry, but perhaps within their circle of trust. His reasoning wasn't based on physical evidence, there was none, but on the way language consistently dodged direct references, on the way grief seemed detached rather than raw. It's crucial to note, Hyatt's analysis is not legal proof. It wouldn't stand in court. But in the absence of physical evidence, his work became one of the most widely circulated interpretations of the case. The conclusion was unsettling. Whether through denial, guilt, or deliberate control, the McCanns' words revealed cracks in the story. And sometimes, Hyatt warned, the truth is not what people say. It's what they cannot bring themselves to say at all. As the official investigation stalled, theories began to multiply. Some were sensational, others grounded in troubling patterns of behavior. Among the most persistent was the theory of an accident, that Madeleine died inside apartment 5A, and her parents staged an abduction to protect themselves. Supporters of this idea point to the unlocked door, the staged appearance of the window curtain, and Kate's immediate declaration, "They've taken her," as indicators that the scene had been arranged. An accidental overdose of sleeping medication, a fall from the bed, or another tragic mishap could explain a sudden, desperate need to create a different story. But darker theories also circulated. Analysts like Peter Hyatt suggested that linguistic avoidance hinted at something beyond an accident, perhaps abuse within a trusted circle. Though no forensic evidence supports this claim, the possibility lingered because of the consistent detachment and omission in Kate's speech. Then came suspicions of political involvement. Clarence Mitchell, the McCann's official spokesperson, was not a random hire. He had been the head of media monitoring for the British government, a man whose job was to manage narratives at the highest level. Soon after Madeleine's disappearance, Prime Minister Gordon Brown himself was reportedly in contact with the family, and pressure was said to have been applied on Portuguese authorities. Meanwhile, strange details emerged. A bouquet of flowers left at a memorial signed by the Knights Templar, whispers of Freemasonry connections, and rumors of doors quietly closed by influential hands. While many dismissed these as conspiracy theories, others saw them as signs of a protective shield surrounding the McCanns. Portuguese detectives grew frustrated. Warrants were delayed, questions had to be submitted through the British Home Office, and media coverage often seemed to tilt in the family's favor. The case stopped looking like a straightforward search for a missing girl and started resembling a battle of narratives. If an accident occurred, did fear of prosecution drive the silence? If abuse was involved, did powerful allies intervene to contain the damage? Or was it all the cruel misinterpretation of a mother's grief? What is undeniable is this. Kate McCann's silence, combined with political pressure and media management, created an environment where the truth, whatever it was, became nearly impossible to reach. From the moment Madeleine disappeared, Kate McCann was thrust into the spotlight. To the press, she was either the picture of a grieving mother or the central figure in a cover-up. Over time, her image fractured into something that defied easy labels. In the early days, British tabloids portrayed her as devastated. Photographs of Kate clutching Madeleine's pink stuffed toy, her eyes hollow and red, dominated front pages. Donations poured into the Find Madeleine Fund. Sympathy was overwhelming. She seemed like a woman crushed beneath the weight of unbearable tragedy. But as days turned into weeks without answers, the narrative shifted. Why didn't she cry on camera? Why did she appear so calm in interviews? Why wasn't she seen actively searching in those crucial first hours? Headlines began to sharpen. The Daily Mail questioned whether the parents had sedated their children. Other outlets hinted at contradictions in their statements. The divide widened. Supporters argued that Kate was a victim twice over, first of her daughter's disappearance, then of a merciless public that demanded a certain performance of grief. Trauma, they reminded, manifests differently in each person. Not all mothers scream or collapse. Some retreat into numb composure. Critics, however, saw her restraint as something else: calculation. Her silence in police interviews, her refusal to answer 48 out of 49 questions. Her tendency to use collective pronouns instead of personal ones. All of it, they said, looked less like trauma and more like concealment. The controversy intensified when Gonçalo Amaral, the lead Portuguese investigator, published a book alleging that Madeleine had died in the apartment and the McCanns staged an abduction. The family sued him, but in 2017, Portugal's Supreme Court ruled in Amaral's favor, affirming his right to publish the theory based on available evidence. The ruling didn't declare Kate guilty, but it legitimized the suspicion. Legally, Kate McCann has never been convicted of a crime, but in the court of public opinion, she has never been cleared. She exists in a gray area where the law says innocent, but many hearts and minds remain unconvinced. And so, Kate became a symbol, either of injustice against a grieving mother, or of secrets locked behind silence. A figure caught between compassion and suspicion, empathy and doubt, truth and lies. 16 years have passed since that warm May night in Praia da Luz. The Ocean Club apartment has long been repainted, rented to other families, its walls scrubbed of the tragedy it once contained. The news cycle has moved on, but the questions remain, stubborn as shadows that refuse to fade. Kate and Jerry McCann were never charged with a crime. No body was ever found. No suspect has ever stood trial. By every legal measure, the case remains unsolved. Yet the disappearance of Madeleine McCann continues to be one of the most polarizing mysteries of modern times, not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. Why did Kate delete 3 calls from her husband in the very hour her daughter disappeared? Why refuse to answer questions so simple they required nothing but memory? Why, upon finding the bed empty, did she run to the restaurant and declare, "They've taken her," rather than search, shout, or call for help? Silence in grief is understandable. Silence in trauma is human, but silence repeated, silence at key moments, silence before the simplest questions, creates a different portrait. One not of helplessness, but of control. One not of shock, but of choice. And that choice has left the world divided. Was Kate McCann the victim of cruel suspicion? A mother judged for grieving the wrong way? Or was she the keeper of a truth too terrible to reveal? A truth buried beneath layers of denial, fear, or protection. What we do know is this. The tragedy of Madeleine McCann is not only that a child vanished, but that the answers vanished with her. And perhaps the most haunting reality is that the person who could have spoken the loudest, the mother, chose silence. 16 years later, that silence still echoes, louder than ever. So, we leave you with the question that has lingered since that night. Where is Madeleine McCann? And when silence speaks louder than words, what do you believe?